Hi everyone, welcome to the channel. I'm Snow, and today we're going to talk about Rico. She's a strong defender-style character boasting AOE attacks, knockbacks, and strikebacks. So in this video, let's go over her skill build and equipment setup. Let's talk about her trait skill first. It's called Most Unkind Lord, or Formidable Boss. And there's two main parts to this trait skill. The first section of her trait skill gives her the ability to block, so there's a 50% chance she'll face her attacker and reduce the damage taken by 20%. She also gets a jump buff that triples her jumping power, which allows her to transverse over gaps. She's also immune to frosty tile effects, so her movement cost is not affected when stepping on frosty tiles, and knockback won't make her slide across all the tiles. In addition, she gets some stat increases for her physical attack and health, which are both boosted by 5% at base star level, and it reaches a maximum of 15% at 5 stars. She also has a self-heal built into her trait skill, so after she's actively attacked, if she's in an injured state, she'll recover HP equal to 30% of her physical attack, and it can be triggered up to 1 time per round. That's what it is when she's base star level. At 4 stars, the HP recovery is increased to 50% of physical attack, and it can be triggered twice per round. The second section of her trait skill is her special mechanic called Fur Rage. This is a unique state that lets her gain Fur Rage stacks that allow her to use a special skill called Dragon Roar. Dragon Roar is an instant skill that costs 8 stacks to use. With this skill, she jumps to a target location dealing 110% AOE damage to all enemies within 2 tiles of the target, but the skill multiplier decreases by 10% for each additional enemy hit. However, the overall damage multiplier can only go down to 80%. After she attacks, the targets will be inflicted with Vulnerable 2, which is a debuff that increases damage taken by 20%, and that debuff will last for 2 turns. It will also inflict stun for 1 turn on enemies that are in a dying state. After the attack, all Fur Rage stacks are removed, and Rico will gain Damage Reduction 2, which decreases damage taken by 20%, and that will last for 2 turns. She also gains a special buff called Be Serious, which is a buff that increases crit rate by 100% and crit damage by 30%. This buff will last for 2 turns, but once you attack and it's triggered, Be Serious will be removed. After using the skill, she also gains Quiet Mode for 2 turns, which prevents her from accumulating Fur Rage. This cannot be dispelled or immunized. However, if gained during extra attack, the duration is reduced by 1 turn. The cost to use this skill is high, but there are a number of ways for Rico to accumulate stacks. First, she'll gain 6 stacks at the start of battle. She gains this at 2 stars, so she'll gain 2 stacks at 2 stars, and it incrementally increases by 2, reaching a maximum of 6 stacks at 5 stars. She also gains 2 stacks when attacked, which she has at base star level. In addition, she gets 2 stacks at the end of her turn. It starts off as 1 stack at base star level and increases to 2 stacks when she's 4 stars. She also has some skills in her kit that will help her gain stacks, but the more stars she has, the easier it's going to be for her to get stacks. And then she'll be able to use her special skill more frequently. You'll see what I mean when we go over her skills in her kit. Next, let's discuss her skill build and setup. There are a few ways that you can build her, because you can focus on a basic damage build or a strike back setup. So for her basic attack, her best option is No Escape. This deals 70% AOE physical damage to all enemies within 1 tile of the target. Then it knocks back the center target by an additional 2 tiles. This basic attack actually synergizes very well with some of her other skills that she has, and it's going to offer more damage, etc. And we'll go over those skills in a moment. For her reaction skill, her best option is Never Give Up. This reaction skill reduces melee damage taken by 15%. It also lets her gain Unyielding. This is a buff that lets her return to battle and recover 35% of her HP when she's defeated. And this can be activated 1 time per battle. This buff also can't be dispelled or immunized. And when Unyielding is triggered, she'll also recover all energy, it'll remove Quiet Mode, and she'll gain 8 stacks of Fur Rage. So she'll be able to use her special skill immediately. She'll also gain a Speed 4 buff, which increases speed by 200, and that will last for 1 turn. This reaction skill gives her a great combination of improving her tankiness by reducing the damage taken, along with her survivability because of the unyielding buff, which allows her to revive herself 1 time. So this is really great for her sustainability in battle. As for her 3 skill slots, there's 2 main setups that you can do. One that just prioritizes damage, and the other that uses strikebacks. So there's 5 skills you really want to pick up. The first skill is a rank 3 skill called Melt Power Boost. And this is a healing skill that's also an instant skill, and it restores HP equal to 80% of her physical attack. She also gains 2 stacks of damage lock. This is a buff where damage taken by a single attack cannot exceed a certain percentage of max HP. In this case, equal to 45% of her max HP. And after this triggers, 1 stack will be removed. She'll also get a physical defense and magic defense buff for 2 turns, and this is going to increase her physical and magic defense by 40%. In addition, this skill will give her 2 stacks of Fur Rage. This skill is really great for her strike back setup, because this gives her access to self-sustain by giving her access to a self-heal, as well as some defensive buffs. But this is also a way for her to get first stacks. So if you're early game and you have lower star rarity, this is one of the ways that you can gain first stacks. This skill also pairs really well with her rank 7 skill called Try to Make Me Mad, also called Provoke Me. And this is a support skill. Well, she'll gain 2 stacks of Fur Rage, and she'll also gain a number of buffs. She'll get Attack 2, which is increasing her physical and magic attack by 20%. She'll also get a crit damage buff, which increases her crit damage by 15%, and those buffs are going to last for 2 turns. In addition, she gets a special buff called Roar Fury, and this will give her a 100% chance to trigger block when receiving an enemy's physical attack from the front or side, and when blocking, the damage taken is reduced by 20%. In addition, after actively being attacked by an enemy within 2 tiles from the front or side, she'll perform a strike back, dealing 70% AOE physical damage to all enemies within a 1 tile radius of the target, and this can be triggered up to 2 times per round. While she has Roar Fury, she'll gain 1 additional stack of Fur Rage after being attacked, and this effect cannot be dispelled or immunized. And she'll have Roar Fury until the start of the next 2 turns. The good part about this skill is it doesn't have a cooldown, it just has a cost of 2. So as long as you have 2 energy, you can reapply all of these buffs and Roar Fury to her to make use of the strike back. This skill actually works really well when she's lower star rarity, because it's a way for her to accumulate those stacks to use her special skill. And of course, you get the extra damage from the strike backs. Her other option at rank 7 is also one of her primary skills. It's called It's Time to Be Real, also called Hammer Time. And this is a decision skill with 2 different options. The first is called Mountain Toppling Slap, also called Heaven's Destruction. This skill deals 70% AOE physical damage to all enemies within a 3x4 area in the target direction. It also inflicts physical defense down 2 and healing received block for 2 turns. Then it knocks back the first enemy in each column by 1 tile. The skill multiplier is increased by 20% against targets with knockback immunity. And when she has her special buff, Be Serious, the skill multiplier increases by 15%. The other option is called Earth-Shattering Tornado, and this skill deals 65% AOE damage to all enemies within 3 tiles of the character. It also inflicts physical defense down 2 and healing received block for 2 turns. Then knocks back the first enemy within a cross-shaped range of 2 tiles by 2 tiles. When she has that special buff, Be Serious, it knocks back 1 additional tile and inflicts movement down 1 for 2 turns. These skills do have a cooldown of 1 and a cost of 2, but this is one of her better damage dealing skills. This also pairs really well with some of her other skills, which we're going to get into next. At rank 11, she has 2 important skills. The first skill is called Crackling Sparks, also called Instant Burst. This is a passive where she gains 2 stacks of Fur Rage after casting a class skill. And when she deals collision damage, it deals AOE physical damage equal to 25% of physical attack to all enemies within a 1 tile radius of both parties involved in the collision. Collision damage is when you knock back an enemy into another enemy or target, in other words, an object. The attack also increases by 15% against targets with knockback immunity. And before attacking, she inflicts physical defense down and magic defense down for 2 turns. So this passive offers a lot of benefits for additional damage, and because of the debuffs, you'll get even more damage out of her and her team. This also pairs really well with her decision skill, as well as her special skill, Dragon Roar, which is a skill built into her trait skill. Her other skill at rank 11 will help you to further increase her damage. This is a leader aura skill, and this is for Drifter allies. It increases their attack by 10%, and defense increases by 20%. And when performing active attacks and strikebacks, the damage dealt is increased by 5% for each target hit, and this can go up to 15%. And if the target's in an injured state, the crit and crit damage of the attack are increased by 10%. This is another great skill to carry to increase both her damage and tankiness. Another great thing is all other Drifter allies will also benefit from this aura effect. So her skill tree selection will look something like this, with the top skill line being for her damage setup, and the bottom skill line is if you want to use strikebacks. Now let's talk about her equipment setup. For her weapon, her best option is her special weapon called Hammer Dragon Rise. This increases the damage of AOE attacks, strikebacks, and preempts. And for each additional target hit, you'll get additional damage. Another option is Gale Sword. This gives a physical attack increase, as well as increasing critical damage. Tuning Hammer is another option. This will increase her physical attack and dispel 1 buff from the target before attacking. For her trinket, she has a couple of options. The first is Shield of Justice. This gives a physical shield, and when she has a physical shield, her attack and defense would increase. So it gives her the double benefit of increasing her damage and tankiness. Some other options are Maverick's Cloak. This would give her an attack and defense increase when there's no allies around her, and it will also give her a crit rate increase. Origin Hourglass is another option. This would increase her physical and magic attack. It also would grant immunity to movement down and speed down. And if you're using the strikeback setup, Crystal Burst Armor is a good option. It increases her HP, and her strikebacks would deal more damage. For her Whisper, Magician's a great option. It's going to increase her damage, and for every enemy hit, she's going to get even more increases to her damage. And since she has so many AOE skills, this is a really good option for her. You can also use something like Devil. This also will increase her damage. And if you're using the strikeback setup, Tower is a good option because this is going to increase her damage when it's not her turn. And for her engravings, you can use Sword and Wand. This will increase her attack and defense for every tile transversed. So again, this is a great way to increase her damage and tankiness. Rico is a strong AOE damage dealing character who can also make use of strikebacks. She has strong self-sustain with her built-in self-heal and buffs for defense and damage mitigation. She is a bit of a selfish character, but her allies can make use of her defense down debuff that she applies to enemies and the attack boosts that she gives through her aura effect for Drifter characters. Overall, she is a great damage-dealing Bruiser-style character. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. I'd love to have you as a part of my community. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye.